Hi, good afternoon. Um, so the Literature Nobel 2023 was awarded to the Norwegian writer Jon Fosse for his innovative plays and prose, which give voice to the unsayable. I'm particularly pleased to be able to invite Sister Ananda, Ananda Amritmahal. She's the Dean and Administrator of Sophia College for Women, and she will tell us more about the author and his prize-winning body of work. But a little bit about our speaker today. Sister Ananda completed her doctoral work here in our department under the guidance of Professor Pelin Malshe, and I was privileged enough to be on the RPC and had grand memories of it. Her areas of specialization are women's writing, feminist literary criticism, and Indian writing in English. She was formerly principal of Sophia's College, associate professor and head of the Department of English, and honorary director of the Sophia Center for Women's Studies, so a lot of roles. And under her stewardship, the college has gone from strength to strength, including gaining autonomy fairly recently. She was a Fulbright scholar and also winner of the University of Mumbai's Exemplary Teacher Award because of her contribution to the field of women's education and empowerment. It gives me great pleasure to invite Sister Ananda to please talk to us.
Good afternoon, and I must first say that, the poster says here, the experts. I must tell you, I'm not an expert on the work of Jon Fosse, because to begin with, there isn't that much of his work that is even available right now easily in English. A lot of translations have been done, but they're not that easily accessible, and there's very little work that has actually been done on his work in English. So sorry about that. Having said which, it's been very exciting to be involved in doing this presentation, because it's forced me to look at his work and engage with some of the very core questions that he raises in that writing, which have particular relevance for me, because as Professor Sharma, when she was introducing me, said Sister Ananda, and as a holy nun, the very strongly mystical element in the work of Fosse is fascinating, because in many ways he seems to be engaging with existential questions that go to the core of those paradoxes that torment each one of us at some stage or other of our lives. Okay, so Fosse was born in 1959 in a small town in Norway, and his work, it's a huge body of work. It spans novels and plays actually primarily. That was what put him on the map. Children's literature, essays, short stories, poems, all of that. And he's had a number of national and international awards to his credit, culminating, of course, in the Nobel Prize. And his first published work was in 1983, Scarlet Black, and Red Black, sorry, not Scarlet Black, Red Black. And it's exactly 40 years later that he got his Nobel. So it's like, landmark in double ways. He's, as I mentions it, 40 plus plays, 36 prose works, 13 books of poems, you name it. Just looking at that and you feel a bit exhausted. He was born, as I said, in a small town in Norway, very close to the Hardanger Fjord, which is on the western coast of Norway. And he was born to parents who were Quakers, pietists, which anchored them in very fundamentalist, almost, schools of Christian thought, which have had their impact on Fosse's delvings into the spiritual realm as well. At the age of 7, he had a near-death experience during which he experienced some great shining. And that, again, seems to have sent rays of light into his work. And he claims it in his own writings. In his teenage years, like many of us who lived at that, I'm just 2 years older than him. So many of us who lived at that period, we were rebels, we were nonconformists, we were influenced by Marxist ideology, we were everything, you name it. And he was a hippie, he wanted to be a rock guitarist. He wrote a number of songs, lyrics, etc. While he was studying, he was influenced, again, like many of us, by Heidegger, by Derrida, and so on. But as he moved away from his musical ambitions, he began to start writing. And as he wrote more and more, that became the driving passion of his life. When he's talking in one of the interviews after he gets the Nobel, he talks about how writing is something that is deep down. He has to delve into himself and pull it out of himself, as it were. And it's got nothing to do with how it's going to be received. It has everything to do with the fact that the words are demanding that he respond in that way. He had a very difficult personal life himself. He struggled through many, many years of alcoholism. He struggled through 2 dysfunctional marriages. And then finally in 2011, he got married the 3rd time. In 2012, 13, he converted to Catholicism. And somehow that seems to have given him the impetus to voluntarily go in for rehabilitation and so on, which has had an impact on his life that was unbelievable, but at the same time reflected very much in the writing as well, particularly in the very famous book, Septology, which is actually 7 books. Septology, like trilogy, Septology. And that one traces the life of somebody very much like himself. Alcoholic, dysfunctional marriages, etc. And you have 2 doppelgangers, as it were, both with the same name, Asler. And both of them meet each other, become friends. They're both painters. They both live in Norway, in some small village there. And one of them has followed the Fosse track of, finally getting married to the right person, converting to Catholicism, putting his life back on track. And the other one has continued without any of that. And the parallel lives unfolding become the center of that particular set of novels. Okay. His plays, they talk about how readable they are. And also, not everybody has the gift to be able to create lines that can be spoken with ease. But he has that gift. He's perhaps the most performed playwright in Europe. And strangely, his plays don't seem to have had a success in England. All over Europe, the plays, he's performed over and over and over again. But in England, the twice that they did try it out, both times flopped hugely. Hopefully they'll start again. Now, one thing when he talks about his plays, he talks about how one of the central, we'll look at that in a minute when we look at recurrent themes, but he talks about how plays have this intense engagement with negative emotions, conflict, as well as particularly jealousy, he talks about. And he says, all you have to do is you have 2 people on stage, put in a 3rd one, and there you have a play. And that's it. Okay? Maybe that was why, at the time that he was going through that transformative experience in his own life, he felt that he needed to stop writing because it was churning up too much or what. But he stopped writing plays. He said, I don't want to write another play. It gives me no joy. In 2014, until 2018, he didn't write another play. Now he started again, but still. And of course, Septology, as I said, which is his most famous work, is 7 novels, 7 books. The first 2 called The Other Name, the next 2 called I Is Another, and the next 3, and the last 2 called A New Name. Okay, now to look at what is he talking about? I mean, because all that huge body of work, there have to be some recurrent themes. You can't be coming up with the same theme every single time. So recurrent themes running through all of his work like a thread almost, or like the sound of the tanpura in classical music, is ordinary everyday life, but explored at the depth level. Okay? There are strong autobiographical elements in his writing, which he admits, which he in fact proudly claims. He delves into anxieties, struggles, insecurities, suffering, grace also, contradictions, paradoxes, questions about life and death, and issues that are being confronted by human beings right from the very beginning, from the beginning of time and the beginning of our own lives, all of it. Issues that are really integral to the human condition. But in the way in which he is approaching them, there is, as I said earlier, a strong undercurrent of mysticism and, the unknown, darkness, mystery, silence. These surface time and again. I've already told you about the jealousy dimension, so I'm not going back there. It's interesting, his first work was in the early 80s, right? 83. And after that also, the predominant tone in Norwegian writing of that time was social realism. And his writing seemed quite different, because here he was diving into the innermost workings of the psyche, the way in which relationships function. You're not looking at the social realities that surround us, etc. He was looking at the inner person, as it were. So love, life and death, choices, and God. God plays a very important element in his work. The chair of the Nobel Committee for Literature actually says what is special is that he touches on the deepest feelings you have. And somewhere I want to just quote one thing that he himself talks about. He says, God is so close that you cannot experience him, and so distant that you cannot think of him. And somehow that seems to encapsulate the way every mystic thinks of God. Okay? Well, his writing, apart from predominant themes, we need to also look a little bit at some of the characteristic traits of his writing. So there is a minimalistic use of language. In fact, it's called Fosse minimalism. And a minimal use of punctuation. In fact, in septology, there are very few full stops. It just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. And I'm going to read a bit of it at the end of this so that you get a feel of what it looks like. The rhythm and the flow of the language in many ways follow that of thought, very much like the stream of consciousness technique. But at the same stream of consciousness, which you may have heard of, is a technique of writing where the written word follows the way one would think. So suddenly you wander, you've noticed how you think, right? Suddenly in the middle of one thought, another thought crosses across. And the stream of consciousness writing will echo all of that. He also talks about, when people talk about, when they're talking, obviously I don't read Norwegian, but apparently there is a very strong musicality and rhythm in his writing. And the musicality of the movement between speech and silence or thought is full of grace and rhythm. It's a little like Wittgenstein says, no? Whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must remain silent. And that again is something very powerfully visible in his writing. Characters, he says, he doesn't see them as people at all. He sees them as sounds, and then the sounds interact with each other and they weave themselves together into the symphony. So that's the way he writes his plays. He calls his writing slow prose. Translators have said, I don't know what he means by slow prose, but it seems like any other prose. But the movement of the events, the movement of the thought in many ways is slow. And of course, the imagery draws upon sights and sounds of the sea, the wildness of the rocks and the waves and the wind, all of that. He's done a fair amount of translating himself, and that also seems to have had an impact on the way in which he uses language, particularly the work of Greek dramatists. Now, I want to end this with some extracts from his writing, 2 poems. And again, the little boy sings, "If you hear my heart come, then let it leave again. Let the rain rain, let the sun see, let the wind blow, let my heart beat." Another one. "I don't know what it is that always makes something happen. There must be something, because something always happens. I don't want anything to happen, and then something happens all the same." And now this example of prose, not one, full stop. "And I see myself standing and looking at the picture with the 2 lines that cross in the middle, one purple line, one brown line. It's a painting, wider than it's high. And I see that I painted the lines slowly. The paint is thick, 2 long, wide lines, and they've dripped where the brown line and the purple line cross. The colors blend beautifully and drip. And I'm thinking, this isn't a picture. But suddenly the picture is the way it's supposed to be. It's done. There's nothing more to do on it. I think it's time to put it away. I don't want to stand here at the easel anymore. I don't want to look at it anymore, I think. And I think today's Monday. And I think I have to put this picture away with the other ones I'm working on. But I'm not done with. The canvases on stretchers leaning against the wall between the bedroom door and the hall door, under the hook with the brown leather shoulder bag on it, the bag where I keep my sketch pad and pencil. And then I look at the 2 stacks of finished paintings propped against the wall next to the kitchen door. I'm out of breath. I already have 10 or so big paintings finished, plus 4 or 5 small ones, something like that. 14 paintings in all in 2 stacks next to each other by the kitchen door, since I'm about to have a show. Most of the paintings are approximately square, as they put it, I think, but sometimes I also paint long, narrow ones. And the ones with the 2 lines crossing is noticeably oblong, as they put it. But I don't want to put this one into the show because I don't like it much. Maybe all things considered, it's not really a painting, just 2 lines. Or maybe I want to keep it for myself and not sell it. I like to keep my best pictures, not sell them. Maybe this is one of them, even though I don't like it. Yes, maybe I do want to hold on to it, even if you might say it's a failed painting. Like I said, I'm out of breath. Thank you.